to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode 172 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. As always, my name is Adam Camilleri, and I'm joined by... there's probably some very young whippersnappers who do not know the name of the great Andrew Gonyo, a gentleman who has won WTCs, winning Nova Invitationals and Nova Opens ad nauseum in the early days of Adam's 40k career. Definitely somebody I looked up to for a very long time. He's a member of Team Art of War, being more of the kicking ass and taking names category rather than the coaching and content creation side. But he is an absolute venerable gentleman of the scene and an absolute stellar human being also. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I can't get much better than that glowing of review.
That's what I always try and do. I always try and make your first line awkward as hell by just deluge of praise. But anyway, we are here to talk about the World Championships of Warhammer. I'm doing a bunch of double duties on this episode, guide. Firstly, this is, I believe, an event that will become akin to the WTC, as in, like, it is a grandiose event worthy of an episode on any podcast, breaking it down, telling you guys about it, and bringing more light and awareness to some of the phenomenal events being held in the world. Akin to a WTC, an LGT, an LVO, etc., etc. I definitely want to give it its time of day, but it is also a very unique event in a lot of different ways, and we're going to be here talking about it and breaking down how it works. And I've done the stats for the entire event overall, and I've done the stats for each individual 8 pod of 22 players that you will see there. But before we get in, Art of War's 2-part podcast, of course, the second part of this one will be myself and the lovely Andrew Gonyo breaking down notable players in attendance, putting spotlight on them and their lists, what they are taking to this event and why, and pontificating upon what we think their lists are supposed to do, how they function, spicy tech, etc. So if you want to get over there and see what the best and brightest from over 40 different nations are bringing to this event, this meta-busting event, go and check over us at Art of War Down Under over on Patreon. But a little bit about Andrew. Hello, welcome again, Andrew Gonyo. I've talked for a lot, but from whence do you hail, my man?
So I currently live, East Coast US, right in good old Virginia.
Am I crazy in thinking that you were part of Beast Coast?
Yeah, I was part of Beast Coast, kind of one of the founder guys of that, and I've probably the last 2 years, I play for Art of War, but we're all kind of dispersed. I've known Nick since he was. Since we were both kids, if I'm thinking of that honestly, I'm in my late 30s now, but, I've known Nick since he was probably 13 or 14. So kind of the friendships that I developed over the years put me on Art of War. Last 2 years, I've been playing more on Tundra Tactics, a team out of the Midwest with a bunch of my buddies for like team events and stuff like that. So I've gotten around on teams, but those are probably like my main 3 over the last 10 years.
Fantastic. And of course, Beast Coast, for those you do not know, is, I suppose, the first juggernaut team we saw. The first super team that we saw in 40k, going all the way through, I think, 5th, 6th, and 7th edition. And it's still going today in 8th edition, but kind of more dispersed. People get older, people get kids, these things happen. It tends to be like that there's a kind of a shelf life to a lot of clubs, a lot of these juggernaut teams where people kind of, break off and do their own things, guys like Sean
it really depends on like how busy folks get, I think.
Exactly,
because, some of the teams, if you have that guy who probably started it, who was maybe a little later in life, already had like older kids, those things can go forever, right? The Battle for Salvation Club, those guys. There's several others that like they have been around forever. They've been around since I was a player, and there's like the early part of my playing career, and they're still around now. Beast Coast, I think, kind of it hit that super team critical mass that some of them do, where it gets so big and so unwieldy that because teams are just groups of friends, right? If we get right down to it, a lot of them aren't like pro teams or doing practices or anything, and so. At some point, everyone invites their friends, and it's this huge team, and you get to like, I don't know what Beast Coast got to at its max. Active players that were like going to GTs, you're probably looking at more like 50 tops, which is still huge. Yeah. But like people on the roster that were in chats, like 200. And at some point, you start feeling as a player, at least I know I did, I love a lot of those guys, but I start feeling like, hell, most of the guys that are on here talking all day, I've never even met in my life. And it felt weird. So then like I think I kind of branched off to like a smaller team, and so did a lot of the other people. And then the fracture starts to happen, and we're all still friends, but we're moving our own directions. And it actually just recently, within the last couple months, got revived. Some of the old members from it, Phil and some of the others, came back to 40k, and they've kind of kicked it off again. It is not a super team anymore, but You know, there's a life cycle to these things. I think the current probably biggest super team is God, what is it? How am I blanking on this right now? Death or Glory. Sorry, they have a ton of members. So that's another one that maybe they'll hang on, maybe they won't.
Yeah,
we'll hit their next evolution like all of us do.
We have these teams now. Actually, this is kind of a tangent, but we have these teams now. We have the super ultra professional. We have the Art of Wars. You have the team Ignites, who are literally just like a semi-professional, professional level players. They're
pretty good.
You know, they're pretty damn good. And the purpose of being on them is that you are one of the best players in the world. And then we have the beautiful, amazing juggernaut communities teams like, you know, Death of Glory and a myriad of different others. And I bet you everybody right now is thinking about the one in their local scene that is always the people who organize the barbecue after the event. They're always the people who get you together. You know, you've probably gone to their weddings. You probably know their kids and have met their wives and partners, etc. Yeah, absolutely amazing. But to the meat and potatoes. Actually, sorry, a little bit more yourself, because I think I first met you in 2018 at the WTC at the second last ETC.
I feel like it was earlier than that, right? Because I think 2018 was the year that the US won, if I remember right. Yep. And that was the last one that I attended after I stepped down as captain of the previous year. And then Sean took over and I was still a player and we won. But I feel like we played Team Australia and I met you 2 or 3 years earlier because you guys came and then couldn't get a team like the next year and then you came again the year after.
I was not part of that team, but I like to think that a doppelganger of mine was. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my first one was 2018
Really? God, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I thought you were part of the previous one too.
I get this all the time. People think I've just been just a fart hanging in the air. I actually haven't been around that long in 40K. I was kicking it over in the fantasy side of things before then. But you and I hung out at an airport just waiting for a flight after that, and we got chatting and kind of hit it off. Tony Kopach was there as well, and we were just trading stupid stories for like 2 hours waiting for a flight. But
oh, dude, I actually still remember that. That was a blast for me too. Was Josh there too? Diffie?
Diffie? I'm actually not sure if Diffie was there. I think it was me and might have been Pete Platel.
Yes.
Yes, Redbeard. But yeah, that was when I definitely met a guy who I had been tracking for a very long time in the scene, because you were one of those names on the East Coast that was always a perennial, if not a threat to win every event. Where are you at the moment? Because you are playing in this World Championships. What's your current competitive aspirations?
I've kind of tried to put the ghost back on and get back to it. It was weird. I'll give you the short little diatribe about like how odd it was coming back to competitive 40K after COVID. So I started competitive 40K. I wanted to get into it and I started playing in 97. I didn't start playing competitive 40K until 2008 or 9. I probably won my first big GT major in 2010 because it was a goal, and then my goal was progress through wanting to get on Team America, maybe one day becoming captain. And I was winning. God, I had a year where I won, I think 6 majors or GTs. Wow. So I was winning multiple every year. I was going crazy. I played a lot. So that does help, right? I didn't have kids yet. Then COVID hit. I have family members who have health complications, things like that. I wasn't going to go out and play during COVID. So COVID was blacked out for me. I did not play any events. And as you step away from the meta for about 3 months, and all of a sudden the river has passed by you, and you can't find anyone that you once knew, and all of the armies are different. And I think it was Neil Gilstrap from one of the podcasts who had told me once, he was like, "Damn, it is so hard to get in competitive 40K because there's such a learning curve to catch the current top players." And I never really understood fully what he was talking about until I tried to jump back in myself, and I had not played any of the matches. So when you're constantly in competitive 40K, you just have to learn the next match. The next book that comes out, you just add a little chink to your knowledge. You toss another book on the stack and you keep moving. When you come back after a long hiatus, 2.5 years, which I think is about what I was, 2 years, it was bizarre. I had to learn every book because I had not been playing, and while I've been helping out with some stuff, it's not the same as keeping up the competitive meta and what people are doing. And all of a sudden I had to learn all of the books at once. And it was drinking through a fire hose, and it took a little while. It took several months for me to kind of get my sea legs back. Then I've done well since. I've won lots of best overalls. I've won a handful of best generals, not a ton, at GTs and stuff. So I think I've probably still won since COVID 5 to 10 best overalls. Won some great events. Had a lot of fun. But I think my focus was always a little bit more on best overall, and now it's a lot more best in overall because I love the painting aspect. So I've been moving more into that and kind of enjoying getting back. But when I first came back, and then I'll pass it back after monologuing for a second, I was at my local game store, right? And I know you said I was one of the players you look up to. As a person, that's always so weird to hear because you're like, I'm just some dude that rolls dice. This is nothing. That's my name. That's so weird,
dude. That's all any of us are, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and so, but I guess, used to everyone kind of knowing who I was. I was Gonyo. Everyone kind of knew me. Mm-hmm. It was hard to go anywhere where people either hadn't heard of my name or hadn't met me, and it was just normal. And so I went to a local game store, I think for an RTT, and I set down my stuff. And the guy's like, "Oh, dude, those are cool objectives. Does Ard War sell those?" And I was, and I think I had my jersey on too because it was an event. And I was like, "Yeah, they sell the." He's like, "Do they sell the jerseys too?" And I was like, "No."
He assumed you just bought it.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, where'd you get it then?" I was like, "Oh, well, I play with him." He's like, "Oh my god, have you ever met Nick?" And I was like,
You'd be like, "Nick used to carry my bags, kid."
I was like, "All right, I'm officially over the hill. This kid has checked my ego into oblivion. Maybe I should sit down and color for a minute while I catch up." And you know what? While I was gone, the scene exploded, and like I was always tracking it a little bit, but like, man, they practice a ton now. The advent of TTS, like they've gotten good. So I'm putting my own personal mental band back together, and I am trying out for and attempting to get back on the U.S. team this year. We will see if they need me and if I'm good enough.
Fantastic, man.
It'll be a blast. I want to get back to Europe and kind of see all the old friends that I haven't seen in a while. So that's Andrew Gonyo's recent journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. How many ETCs did you play? And I know you were. And how many years were you American captain? Sorry.
Played 3 years. I played 6 years, and I was captain for 3 of those. So I went from 12 or 13 until 18 or 19. Maybe no. I think I probably did go in 19 because that would have been pre-COVID.
Yeah. So you have missed 3. If you came back, after 3, that would be a really, really, and go back to the level. That would be really impressive. That would be such a beautiful story as well.
It'd be uncommon, that's for sure.
It would be uncommon, absolutely would be. But let's move on to our main topic of the day, talking about the World Championships of Warhammer. So, firstly, how did you win your golden ticket? How did you win entry?
So this year I got my golden ticket through American Team Championship. So I was playing with Thunder Tactics. Probably like the best new group of 40K friends I could ever have hoped for. Some of them I already knew, and we took second, I want to say, at ATC, and both the first and second place teams got tickets. So I got it that way.
Fantastic. And so that is the system that they have for the World Championships, by the way, guys. So this is run ostensibly by Games Workshop. It is kind of the flagship of their a circuit, I guess, for lack of a better word, their internal, United States circuit, but it extends way beyond those borders, and essentially any TO from a respective country that wishes to participate can, petition, I guess, GW or the GW tournament organizers to get a golden ticket for their event to be given, at the discretion of the TO. And I believe I had a count a while ago from GW that said there was possibly 46 countries sending delegations of their best and brightest to this event. I don't know quite sure what it's rounded out as, but it's at least 40. It's 40 or more nations sending possibly their best players available. And of course, it is a big ask. I know a very good friend of mine, Jeremy Martino, just won the Oceanic Championships, and because of various different things, he didn't have a lot of time to get leave to go, even though he had, partially paid flights and accommodation to the tune of a couple of grand, and he actually got knocked back. He was unable to get leave from work to go, which kind of shattering. But these are the hurdles that people come to with this system. How do you feel about this system, by the way? What are your thoughts? I think there's a lot of pros. I love how inclusive it is. I love how it's bringing people together, and it's obviously been very successful in bringing 40 nations together, especially some really obscure countries. We've got Thailand, Vietnam, a bunch of South American nations as well. How do you feel about this system?
I really like it personally. Kind of anything for me that makes singles less about single performance and that gets people from different gaming groups and kind of parts of the world together. I mean, like that's always been my favorite thing about WTC now. It was ETC then. Was just getting to meet all the people from all the different countries, exposed to different metas. But like, I have friends all over the world now. We spent hours hanging out in an airport. I never would have met Adam if not for 40K and events that try and that try and put all this stuff together. Of bringing all the players together. So personally, I love it. I feel for your friend. Like when you win a later in the season event, it gets challenging definitely to both book travel, because not all tickets are paid. A lot of the big GW events ones are. A lot of countries, the events, put together, found ways to kind of pay for their winning participants' tickets, but some aren't. And sometimes you win in the things in 1 month. Depending on where you live, booking a travel, for across the country or across the world on 1 month's notice, having to find people to take care of the kids or cover you at work is not doable always for a hobby. So I love the opportunity, but it is definitely a challenge for some of us.
Well, this is why, even years ago when I was first started playing, people said, for lack of a better term, the global scene of 40K is kind of a young person's game, unfortunately, because people just have lives and jobs and, responsibilities that can't always drop. But, you live on the East Coast of United States, so privileged people this year. I would love it if this event moves around a little bit, like UK, Canada, Central Europe, etc. Would be amazing, and would be a great boon to opening it up to a lot of other people. But moving on to another couple of our topics. So, all right. You're playing this event. I think there's 176 players at this. And tell us about how this system works. How is this event different? How is it unique? What is special and spicy?
So it's kind of like an evolution a little bit of last year's finale system. So this is the second or third year that GW's done this kind of finale capstone to their US Open / some global events. And so you get your golden ticket, you go qualify, you get put in your pods, then you get broken up. So we're broken up into 8 pods this year. I think there's 22 players in each, something like that. You play your first 5 rounds in your pod. And I mentioned it's kind of an evolution of the finale from last year, and that'll get into the final bit of it with the double elimination. The finale last year was only the US Open's awarded tickets. And then some of the larger events, like I believe the DEFCON LVO did. So there's only 16 of us. I was in the best overall bracket last year. And then you played until the end. There was double elimination in the last games. Unfortunately for me, because I think I made it to the finals, played Kelling, beat him, and then he was like, he made it an excellent and intelligent kind of read on it, and said, I don't think I can beat you going second. So he just set his entire Eldar army up on the line in the open, not in terrain, and just said, I'm going to roll to go first. And he did twice in a row and got me. So we played 3 games consecutively. So that'll kind of be a foreshadowing of the end of this event.
The double elimination really adds such a spicy twist on things, for better or for worse, but really allowing people to make adjustments on the fly or get a different read or look at the player across from you and start playing the player rather than the table, the mission, the game. It is just such an evolution. I really I wouldn't love to go to an RTT or a GT and play double elimination, but for things like this, of this grandeur, of this magnitude, I think it's really spicy.
It also takes away there's this one moment of dice, which, by the way, is rarely true. If you have one moment of dice, you probably had a lot of moments of decisions that led you to that moment of dice deciding it. But so we're all broken into pods this year. We have 5 rounds in pod play. There's only 22 people. So as you know, when you do Swiss, I think 5 rounds is for 32. So it's not a guarantee that there will be an undefeated coming out of each pod. Then the person who is standing on the top of the heap of the pod will move on to the undefeated play. I think the champions bracket. They make a new bracket of 8 people, 1 from each of the 8 pods. And those guys then play out. I'm trying to think of how many games it is. I think 4 more, Adam? Or is it more than that? It might be more.
There's 12 total rounds you can possibly play at this event, apparently, according to BCP.
Okay. So you probably have, because there's a shadow round, I believe. Yeah. As well.
Or a shadow round possibility.
I will mess up the details, so I'm not going to try. Essentially, those 8 will then play through until there's one of those undefeated, and then there is still, at the end, they're going to have to do double elimination. So that's why you can have some games. It's not necessarily going to go 12 games, but it may, depending if they kind of trade wins back and forth in kind of like a really tight competitive environment. Everyone else that does not make the top 8 pods is going to move into, basically, I believe they're going to be, and you can correct me, I think they get aligned into basically same win rate pod, sort of like a traditional pod system from Nova and the others. And then you keep playing. And I think that's the country part of the pods, where you're still, I think you have 3 more games after pod play, if memory serves. I think it's 2 or 3 Saturday, and then 1 Sunday morning. 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday morning for the people not in the Champions pod.
So what's it really interesting? So I just pulled it up here. So 8 pool winners, like you said, go into the champion bracket. They'll play at up to 7 games of the double elimination style, and they're the only people who are eligible to win best general. So they're the only people who can go undefeated, therefore the only people who can win best general. Everyone else can still win best overall and every other things, best overall being like, I guess, Renman, as some people may call it, best painted, best in faction, best sportsmanship, and then there's special awards and there's team spirit award as well. And then it gets really spicy from here because we've wrapped up, what would happen in a conventional tournament. This is very similar to the Nova format, but where it gets real spicy is that you're not just playing for your personal glory, you're also playing for national glory as well. How do you feel about that? Any pressure?
I don't think any pressure really necessarily from me. As you noted, I've been playing competitive 40K for like 15 straight years. It doesn't really, that piece of it doesn't get to me anymore because I think I've kind of accepted that it's a little bit out of your hands. You do the best that you can, but there's no reason to stress out about the national side of it. It's not like a team event purely, like a pure team event where it really is like your team, your 8 people playing your 8 games that move you in and out of the brackets and up the rankings. There's so many people in it. There's so many ways to earn points, which is great. For instance, you can earn points for your country ranking based on winning all those things Adam just said. Best in faction, best overall, how you ranked in your pods, things like that. And to keep the size of the countries from becoming a dominant factor, they make it so that only one person can earn that. So if I get my country's highest best overall ranking, let's say it's a miracle scenario and I win it, Andrew gets those points for the USA. If another USA person got second overall, their points would not contribute to ours, and so forth. So if I got 7th overall and I was the highest ranked US, well, then we get 7th overall points. And then all those points get amalgamated and put together, and you figure out which country wins. Because of that, I don't have a lot of personal stress for it because, it's a little bit out of your control. I like tracking it. It's a fun little side thing, but I think it'll be more of a fun bragging rights thing than, anything that really stresses people out.
And this is the point where I tell everybody I'm going to be commentating live in person at this event. So, and I'm going to be looking at that scoreboard tick up and talking about that possibly an annoying amount of time because that is the most interesting and exciting thing for me, seeing what countries are doing well in what categories, who's getting up, who's doing what. So first place overall will give you 10 points. Second place is 9. Third is 8. Fourth is 7. 4th through 10th is 7 points. So, dude, coming 10th is only 3 points less than coming first. So if you have and of course, like you said, only the top 5 points awarded to each nation will contribute to the final score. So only your top 5 scores will, go all the way through all the time. So if you just have 5 scores in 10th place, you are doing really well in somebody who's got an absolute murderer getting first, second, and third, and then everyone else is getting 101st, etc., which I actually think is a nice little wrinkle to this. So you can have a bunch of really strong but not the best players in the room performers doing better than some widely distributed spectrum performers from first all the way across. Does that add a little wrinkle to your thinking? Does that add anything to your thoughts?
Well, now you can only, if I remember right, and I believe a country can only earn. Do you earn? I thought you could only earn the U.S. could only get best general points from one person, or can you get it from 5 people?
As such, only the top 5 points awarded to each nation will contribute to their final score. Likewise, each player can only contribute 1 result. So if you're amazing enough to earn 6 points for your painting prowess and 7 points for your final tally of victory points, only your 7 will be counted. So, like you said, one person can't go and just smash and get all the way.
Yeah, I actually really like it personally, this system, because I think the genesis of it was GW did a good job of thinking about how is this going to look and feel for the participants, right? Is this going to look and feel like, a lot of the qualifying events, because last year were US events, everyone from the US is there. And then there's, this small percentages of other countries. Can we even win? Because they have so many more players. So I like this system in that you could have a country with a lot less representation, still do quite well and compete with the big boys. And I think that's kind of fun. because I wouldn't want like, people from Thailand or maybe Korea, because both of those I believe are sending players.
Absolutely,
or just any smaller European nation send players and then be like, oh, but we can't win. Like, it's no fun attending an event that you're like, I'm out of it before I start. So
correct.
I think
there was no point coming. We never had a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, there are obviously advantages for like the UK players or for the US players of just like, maybe we have, just so many more events, so we're getting more practice, or we are sending, a lot more players, so we have more chances. But it's not so much so that there's no point in coming from the others. And also, I think there's just national like pride, right? And trying to get you as high as you can. It's not just about winning the event. If you're a tiny nation without a lot of representation, and then all of a sudden you come in middle of the pack ahead of a ton of the big boys, that's pretty cool too.
Dude, absolutely. Like Peru sending a contingent. How amazing would it be to have Peru like in the top 5? And everyone's just like,
right?
How, why, please explain. All of a sudden, Peru, 40K just pops off completely. Everyone cares about what is going on in Peru 40K now. Like that's a story that I want to come from this, and I'm so excited about it. And yeah, like you said, and also you don't want to, give up, hours and hours of possible earning money at work and spending time with your family and stuff to come to, an event across the world, lose your first round, and then you're out. You're done. It's over. There's no other reason to play. I think that would be the worst possible timeline.
And I think that's why, like, there's lots of ways to earn points that are not just going undefeated. Like, that is just one way to earn points. And it also doesn't earn any more points than any of the other things, right? Like, best overall is worth the same amount of points as best general. And I believe, some of the other, like the painting ones, all that sort of stuff. And also, you can take a loss in your initial pod and then still keep playing, because your pod person will not be undefeated necessarily. So I think they've done a good job, probably the best that you can, to keep it like everyone in the race and everyone feeling like, their play matters, to the bitter end. And
there is some actually really, I would love to see that so it is assumed that all the points scored are the same. So, generalship, paint score, 10 for first place, et cetera, et cetera. Faction ranking score is the spicy one, right? Because everyone's bringing the best factions that they can, the best factions possible. But what if you're a faction specialist of a really obscure, no one thinks is good faction, and you're just better than the only other, So just to let you know, there's 2 Drakari players. There's 2 Drakari players present at the event. I don't know what nations they come from, and maybe we'll figure out that in a minute. But are you telling me that they automatically get 9 and 10 points for their country because there's only 2 of them in representation?
I actually didn't think of that, I'll be honest.
That is a clever meta pick. Don't run the gauntlet of 34 Eldari players and hope that you're the best one there. Nah, I'm just going to take a faction that no one else is going to play and just do, or that like 1 or 2 other people are going to play, and we're all going to get points. Happy days.
Yeah, that is wild. I'll say genuinely, I actually hadn't thought of that. That is, if the countries actually like coordinated, which, I mean, I'm from the US, we are terrible at coordinating with each other. But if they actually did coordinate with each other, like that is an awesome way to actually prop up the, your points as a country. That's cool.
I don't know for sure if that's how the faction rankings work. There might be mechanics built in to make that not a thing.
They keep it from like an auto 8 because you're the only one that chose to break.
Exactly right. There might be some modifier or something on there to make that not a thing. But that was the first thing that came into my mind. If I was going with a bunch of Aussies, I'd be like, let's make sure some of us just play just weird stuff. Yeah. we know, like, so Liam Hackett's attending from Australia, this year's WTC captain. He won the War Masters at the WTC last year. He's pretty good. I put him in if you put a gun to my head and said, is Liam Hackett, one of the best, he's, in my mind, he's easily a top 10 player in the world.
He's done amazing. I've seen some of his stuff.
Ridiculous. And we were like, okay, so Liam's got the best chance at getting first overall, and then XYZ has the next couple of best chances. What if you and me, we just take demons? let's take demons, Drakari, just random stuff, Death Watch, AdMech, stuff like that. We're just going to have a really low representation, and then just get a podium, possibly. And like I said, this is some speculation. They haven't given us the full breakdown of that, but that was the first thing that popped into my head when I saw that system. Like, I hope they've thought about it if it's gameable, because right now it seems a little fun. It seems very fun.
They probably have, and the funny thing is, like, as a US player, and it being like about personal performance to some degree, I didn't even think of that. I just thought of like, what army do I want to play for me?
What did that say about my brain then? I just instantly went to gaming. Gamers gonna game, lovers gonna love.
Yours instantly went to what's the best way for my country to get points, and as an American, my brain went to what's the best way for me to get points.
See, it's the difference between us, mate. Anyway, let us break down. Let's listen to a bit of a stats chat. So I have the stats for each and every group. I've broken all 22 players down. Some of these are just Chaos Space Marine and Eldar, like death mazes for every other participant who's not playing those factions. And some of these are really beautifully spread and look quite nice. There are some ELOs coming out. I think Stats Checker did an ELO breakdown for each pod, and that is really good. You go check that out. But where I have the lovely Andrew, he has that up, and he has a lot of knowledge of the notable players in attendance for each pod. So we're going to just throw out some names of who's there, possibly what they're playing in each pod, etc., etc. But Group 1, we have 1 Sister of Battle, 2 Standard Adeptus Astartes, 1 Dark Angel, 1 Blood Angel, 2 Death Watch, 1 Death Guard, 1 Demons, doubles for Necrons, Tau, and Votan, triple Tyranids, which I think if I remember correctly, that is every Tyranid in attendance. There's 3 in there, and they're all in there. And then 2 Drakari and 2 Eldari. That's actually one of the better spread pods. Who's notable is in that one?
There's a lot of notable folks. And before I launch into this, I will also do my caveat of, oh God, please don't get mad at me. My knowledge of other countries' scenes is not great. So if I leave out some folks from like Switzerland or France or Colombia or one of those, it is not intentional. It's just my own missing it.
When I say notables, I mean notable names and players that you might know at home. I suppose everyone is going to be from a nation that probably has a couple of champions in attendance, their personal national champions and heroes. And when I say notable players, every single person at this event is assumed to be good enough to win a GT, a major, or better. So please, there is no disrespect to anybody listed in this event.
I'll also say
killers.
It's always interesting when you go to an event like this, anything with qualifiers, invitationals. Like I've done Nova Invitational, I've done World Champs, and like it's weird how an event changes. And they usually actually get more positive and less when every single person in attendance is used to winning events, right?
Yes.
There's like a different mindset to it. So Pod 1, right? There's a lot of notable players in Pod 1. I'll do kind of like what I would feel are the more obvious ones first, and then I'll hit some that maybe people are sleeping on. So first up, I will say you're probably going to be looking at like Inez and John, right?
Yeah,
those are your two biggest boys, and they're at 1 and 2 for a reason. They're great players, super nice guys. Inez from Scotland, John from the US, obviously. Then we'll do some WTC stuff. Josh Roberts, is he still England's captain? I believe so. Or if not, he was for years and years and years and years.
He was for years and years and years. I do believe he's taken a bit of sabbatical, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So,
but he is a wonderful gentleman, wonderful guy,
great guy, also awesome player. In number 8, Caillou, if I'm not remembering correctly, he was Germany's captain for a bunch of years too. So Caillou is, and I'm probably butchering names, but he's well known. He's a great player. I remember over the years he was always one of the heavy hitters on the team that we were, thinking about pairing against. Within the US meta, because you have a bunch of them, Matt Laura is actually pretty local to me. Great dude, super nice. I think he came onto the scene like gangbusters a couple years ago at LVO when he played that Custodes game in the finals.
He did,
and everyone was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" He's from Maryland, like an hour from me. I played with him last weekend. You have some other great ones, Kit Smith Hanna. I think he's out of Texas. I chat with Kit. I chatted about Tau because we're playing the same faction. Collins out of like the Atlanta scene. He's been around a long time too. Joel, I want to say, I met him this last year at a team event. He's, I want to say, off Xenos Petting Zoo off the West Coast. Another great player. One of my best friends, and also he's basically an American to me. Kazu Shadar out of Canada. In number 12. I would struggle to find anyone nicer and with prettier Ultramarines than Kaz. So there's a ton of just like awesome, great players here. I'm like super pumped.
Shout out to Benjamin Chia representing Singapore in this pod as well. That is going to be really cool to see. Also, we have Nicholas Francoin from Colombia. Yeah. So beautiful. All right, moving on to pod 2. We're going to keep it at a pretty decent clip, but we are going to get lost in the weeds, guaranteed. All right. One AdMech, Cult Mechanicus. This is the only AdMech in attendance. A single Astra Militarum, 2 Blood Angels, 2 Black Templars, 1s for Chaos Space Marine, 1,000 Suns World Eaters, 3 Chaos Knights. So this is a very heavy Chaos Knight pod, 1 Tau, 2 Votan, 1 Gene Steel Cult, and 5 Eldari. Almost a quarter of this pod being Eldari. Is a fearsome one, and this is a big thing, a takeaway. We're definitely going to unpack and zero in on this in the player spotlight, because I can guarantee you every single player in attendance who isn't playing Eldar has really thought about that matchup in particular. And I know a lot of the best players in the world are bringing very heavy anti-Eldar tech, which is very necessary. I suppose you are no different.
I don't know that I really brought anti-Eldar tech necessarily. I switched my Tau list to have a little bit more of like mission play, move blocking, mobility, because and this is kind of where we'll go to with the Eldar thing. It's just hard to keep up with them. Like they're good for a reason, right? They're pretty good at everything. They have very powerful rules. So sometimes trying to outgun someone at the game that they're already good at is just kind of a losing battle. You don't have the rules for it. But it is going to be interesting because Eldar is kind of the obvious choice for this event. I think the same is going to be said for something like CSM in a lot of cases. So when you run one of the big factions, people are practiced against you. They have a game plan in mind, and maybe you don't against what they're playing or their obscure faction, other than just Eldar good.
Eldar good. Some very notable players in this. I will point out and shout out our 2 Art of War brothers, Jack Halfster and also Richard Siegler, both in this pod. So, only one will make it out of there. Possibly neither, because this is pretty stacked. What do you see here?
Yeah, let's take a moment and pour one out for just everyone. Put yourself in the mindset of you set aside and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go to my local frickin' shop. We got 22 players sign up for the RTT. Yeah, we're going to get like 10 tables. That's an awesome event. We're going to get 10 tables at a local RTT. And then you walk in and you see Nas, Jack Harpster, Richard Siegler, and you're like, what did I walk into? Oh my God.
What did I do to deserve this? And then on top of that, Francois Lalonde from Canada, Joko Johansson from Iceland, Matthias Bellman from Germany. This is a WTC Murderers Row. Joel Larson as well. There is a lot of notable players here.
Notable players, yeah. There are a ton, right? Like everyone with single or double digit ELOs, you've probably heard of. I know I have heard of pretty much all of those people. Kyle, super good dude, plays that up, I want to say the Midwest. Sweet Lou, I don't know if I've ever actually met Sweet Lou, but I see his name whenever I'm at an event with him. I'm like, God damn, that's a good name.
It's so good. It's so good, man.
But yeah, I mean, you have Steven, I think he's off there at Glory, Colin out of Texas. Yeah. You have so many, like Noah, Matei Cesar in 12. He used to play out of the same store as Matt Laura. I think because he was in the US for a while. There's just some awesome folks here and plenty that I'm missing. So this is, I want to say most people say like probably the bracket I'm in is one of the worst, number 4. But I haven't seen a single one of these that looks easy, quote unquote, even for the event. So it is cool.
Any one of these groups is the hardest GT in any country in the world. Any one of these is literally the hardest Murderers Row you'll ever see. Shout outs to Eric Yu representing Hong Kong, China. Shout outs to Rares Platin from Romania as well. And then Louis German Giles from Mexico. So some awesome representation in this pod. Going on to the stats for Group 3. Single Custody, single Astra Militarum, 2 Dark Angels, a single Blood Angel, 5 Chaos Space Marines, 1 World Eaters, 1 Necrons, 2 Tau, 1 Gene Stealer Cults, and get this, still 7 Eldari. So 12 out of 22 there is either Chaos Space Marines or Eldari. And that's what is rough there is that if you didn't bring one of those factions and you're in that pod, man, how many times can you go to the well and think you're going to make it past, the 2 best factions in the game? And this is one of the pods that I think is going to be rough for any other faction, because it could be you play Eldar 4 times in this pod. Not unrealistic and terrifying.
Yeah, no, I mean this is also a crazy pod, right? You got Ben Jurek, who has been tearing it up the last year or two. I know I think he ended up filling in for Scotland at
He did.
WTC, but he's on Team USA as well. Um, he was an alternate, I believe, last year, and has just crushed the West Coast events for the last probably year. A lot with Eldar. Um, God, I know so many of these other people, so I'll try and skip through them. You got double Alexes, you got Spatho and McDougal, Donald Plummer, another fellow Tau brethren, some beautiful models. Then number 7, Guillaume from Belgium. It sounds so familiar. I don't know if I've met him, but his name sticks in my brain.
He's a boss.
Yeah,
he's an absolute boss.
I know I've seen 11
from Germany. Sorry,
yes, 11 Dino. I think I've also heard similarly. Buddy Michael Fox in 14.
Yes,
I'm looking at this event thinking of also from the aspect of like a best painted or like a best overall.
Correct.
And I will say, I think Michael Fox is edged, and at Nova it wasn't much of an edge. It was a larger edge. Me out on painting. I mean, his stuff is absolutely beautiful. So one of my teammates is in this one, Cam Pinero in 16. But man, there are so many good here. There's Morgan Tempe and AD. Like this is. Oh, and I also want to say, when you look at players for the unranked in like 21 and 22 from some of the nations that have, probably lower representation, I will say that do not sleep on them, right?
No.
Because
No.
some of those players, they probably play a ton for the record. But ITC isn't necessarily everywhere. These events aren't necessarily everywhere. So if their events aren't submitting to the ELO, that's why you're seeing unranked. These people are probably really good. And how much, by the way, are these ELO scores going to change after this event? This is a pinata of ELO points if you're in the lower end, and a dangerous place to walk into if you have a bag of ELO points, because you get beat by an unranked player when you're 9th. Good God. Like it moves based on what your rankings are. So they may come here unranked and leave in the top 100. Like it's going to be wild.
Shout out to one of the Aussie boys, Lachlan Rigg from Western Australia, representing the great nation. Sorry, the great state there. They're not a nation. They almost were. And I'm going to butcher the absolute bojangles out of this word. Prichitachi Watanachi from Thailand.
It felt better than what I would do, so I'm glad you.
Oh man, was it?
Yeah, I was looking. I was like, that must be a long flight. He's doing great. I was like, I can't say that. I'm sorry.
I was looking at it. I'm like, that's a lot of letters. That's like all the letters. But fantastic to have you in attendance. Group 4. 2 Custodies, 1 Imperial Knight, 2 Space Wolves, 3 Chaos Space Marines, 3 World Eaters, 1 Chaos Knight, 2 Necrons, 1 Orcs, 3 Tau, 1 Genestealer Cult, and 3 Eldari. Quite a good spread. Quite a good spread in pod 4, mate. Would it happen to be your home? No, yes, it is.
I'm
I got to say, this is one of the every pod is rough, but this pod is especially rough.
Yeah, I looked at the top of this pod and I just had a chuckle. Like, I mean, now going through the other pods are great too, but I do look at this one and I was like, this is going to be so cool. You got Manny, Vanilla, David Gaylord, all great dudes, but like they're so good. So this will be a fun one. I played Justin before out of Texas, Eric in number 5. I'm pretty sure I either played against or met when we played their team at the Canadian team tournament like a few years ago when I played with Nick and Siegler up there. Jaime's here. He played for the US last year. He hails from Spain in number 9. But man, there are so many good players in this pod. And you know what? I also just love that, we have folks from ROK, Republic of Korea. We have Slovenia. Like, how many countries that I've probably never played a player from are in my own pod, and I'm pretty excited for that. I almost wish there was more Eldari in this pod, for the record.
It's very enriching. Shout out to Alex Matheson from the Republic of Korea. Also, shout out and do not sleep on number 7 ranked Thomas Woback, who won the War Masters singles this year. Or it was either him or his twin, who's also got a surname Woback. I can't remember which one it was, but they're both savages, and they're the absolute dark horses to go very deep in this. Let's head over to the next one. All right, so pod number 5. 2 Sisters, 2 Custodies, 1 Astra Militarum, 1 Astartes, 1 Space Wolves, 1 Black Templars, 2 Chaos Space Marines, 1,000 Suns, 2 Death Guard, 1 World Eaters, 1 Chaos Knights, single Orc, single Tau, single Votan, 3 Eldari. And I think that is the best spread that we've had in any pod so far, as in the most factions represented in a single pod. And yeah, this is going to be a really good one. Not too many Eldar, but still they are the most in representation. And I think that is true or equal true for everyone that we've done so far. Might be the way to go as well. But that is a lot of chaos in particular. 2 Chaos Space Marines, 1 T-Suns, 1 Death Guard, 1 Wizards, 1 Chaos Knights. That's all bar demons represented there. And like 0 for Hive Mind in this one as well, which is of note. But what are you seeing player-wise?
There's a ton of good folks here, right? Sasha has beat me at the last 2 events because he's local.
Yeah. Also a big threat for overall and painting, yeah?
Yes. No, Sasha has some beautiful, they're painted as Imperial Fists. There's a lot of other good players. Tyler Principio is local. He just beat me last weekend. But you got Box here, you got David Adelman, Rob Moreland out of Texas. You have Jeff Klodner. He's another local. Sorry. He's right at the same shop as Matt Laura. So that shop with Matt Laura that I mentioned a little bit ago, about an hour away, the Table and Towers shop. Jeff Klodner plays there at number 8. Tyler plays there at number 5. Sasha and I both play there at times. We're a little further away. Matt, that's his home shop. So there's some good little centers. Oh, and I should not fail to mention 14, Wallace O'Donnell, another good friend. I believe he got his ticket at the team tournament. He's always been a good placer. I played him the other weekend, and he runs that shop now. So
nice.
Man, there are some great folks here. I do not know a lot of the foreign players, so I look forward to meeting them. The non-US ones.
A lot of WTC staples here. Dick Vanderhaast from the Netherlands, of course. Florian Schmidt, I think, is the dark horse in here. Florian playing for Germany is an absolute monster, and Rasmus for Norway also is very, very, very strong. This is going to be an interesting one because this is
my money's on Sasha. I'm putting it down now. This pod. I'm betting Sasha.
I'll go against you. You want a better drink,
better beer,
and sit down. I'll be going for Florian Schmidt. Yeah, he's an absolute beast. All right, let us go into pod 6. 2 Custodes, 3 Astra Militarum. Big Astra Militarum representation in this one. 1 Grey Knights, 2 Astartes, 2 Black Templars, 4 Chaos Space Marines, so a lot of CSM, 2 World Eaters, 1 Demon, 1 Tau, 1 Genestealer Cult. It's still 3 Eldari. But yeah, this one is pretty Chaos Space Marine heavy, but also, the triple guard. How do just quickly an aside, how are you feeling about guard in the meta at the moment? Because I played guard all the way through 7th and like the first 2 years of 8th edition. So I played them for like 5 years straight. And I am pretty unenthusiastic about them at the moment, unfortunately.
I think that if you went back to them like me, you'd be much more impressed. I think you would like them a lot better. And I will say that because I was the exact same as you. When the edition came out, obviously I played that game on GW Stream as an exhibition against Nick. I want to say that was in Kansas. And I played them because it was the event it was the army I was bringing to the event. I did not like them when the index dropped because they felt like a mid-strength army. But that strength was derived from spamming indirect, which is just not a fun play style for either person. And so I kind of got off them, right? And I think I then got pushed back to them by some friends who were looking at them recently and started looking at them again. There's a lot more nuance to them now. There's a lot more direct fire tanks that make it a little more interesting than just being did you see that parking lot behind that ruin? Well, it's going to fire at you until you stop it.
Yeah.
That's people are running Dorns and Russes and tank commanders, and it's getting pretty real.
Well, that's all come about, and I am in a bunch of the Treadhead chats. That's all come about because there's literally 2 missions where you will score no points by playing the artillery list because your home objective doesn't score you any points. And so you're like, they'll just exist on the middle for 2 turns. You'll still table them and you'll lose by 20 points. And that just feels bad. But anyway, onto this group. This group does have, Art of War founder Nick Nanavati in here, but who else is present?
You have TJ. I think you'd be crazy not to mention him.
Absolutely.
He has done amazing over the last few years. I know he had, his little community snafu 3 years ago or so. Shout out TJ's a friend. I've known TJ a long time. I also think that he has played the right way, and I've never met anyone that's kind of actually made a recovery and changed how they play. Well, so I'm really excited for TJ in this pod. I also think GSC are such a freaking dark horse still. I know they got a lot less good, but the way they play the game is fundamentally different from other people and has a lot of good matchups. So
yeah, I think a lot of people with the short-term memory have forgotten just how brutal, especially the Akko bombs, still is. But there's also some beautiful treadheads in here, like I said, Nathaniel Borge, whatever, from Texas playing Astra Time. Boris Mishev from England. He is a perennial threat to make the top 8 in the ITC most seasons. And then also Sebastian Gerhardt is here from Germany. Shout out to where is it? Angel C4 Killer. It can't be his real name. Representing Andorra. I hope it is.
And I hope his dad just looked. I'll do my shout outs. Brad Townsend, one of my good friends for many, many times. Best man at my wedding. He was on our team for Touch Tactics, so he's a number 4. And Kevin Grubbs. So I love me some Grubbs, and he will compete with Kaz Ushidar for prettiest painted Ultramarines. And those are both 2 guys that are used to winning best painted, so they will also be kind of big threats for that. Great dude, Ultramarines. He'll be a fun one to watch as well. Oh, and Brad Weir's down to 20. Oh, this is going to be a cool bracket.
Yes, there is. This is going to be a really good bracket. Moving on to number 7. Single Sister of Battles, single Astra Militarum, 2 Astartes, 2 Dark Angels, 1 Space Wolf, 3 Templars, 2 CSM, and 2,000 Suns. Singles for Necrons and Tau, 2 Votan, 1 Gene Stealer Cult, and the perennial, never less than 3 Eldari. Once again, decent, quite a good spread of factions, all told. The only, there's no more than 3. There's 3 Eldari, 3 Black Templars, singles and doubles for the rest. Who are we seeing there, personnel-wise?
Personnel-wise, I think you're going to start at the top, right? So you're gonna go for Arn, super good dude, plays amazingly well. I played him at actually the American Team Championships. Arn's great. Brian Seep is also an awesome player. I was a little surprised to see him on T-Suns. That may be still. He is going to be good right now.
He's going to be on my next episode, doing the T-Suns index review. So
part of me wonders if someone like Brian, who I usually think of as more of an Eldar specialist in some ways, at least in the recent past, if it was a meta choice of him going, people are going to game against it, and T-Suns have like a GSC-esque level of disrespect that people have given them after some small nerfs, and then they were like, "Oh, faction's dead." So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something there that he doesn't know, knows that I don't. My buddy Oliver. Yes, Oliver is in 6. I was like, wait a minute, I'm looking at the wrong Oliver. I don't know Oliver from France, who is probably also very good. But I was like, shit, I shouldn't claim that I know that guy. Scott, out of the Advanced Warfare 40K guys, him and Ben Sherwin play. He's in 17th. I believe that is him. You got Brandon, an old school kind of worked the US guys for years. Still a good dude. He's doing some Tau.
Brandon and I played together for the Mercs at the first WTC in 2022. 2022. So yeah, great bloke.
Who else do we have? Oliver Smith from my team, that one I mentioned. You have Jeremy, super good dude, does a lot of judging. So this one he'll be a player. We can put his medal to the test in number 7.
We have to shout out Jeremy because he did all the ELO rankings we're now currently taking advantage of. So thank you very much, Jeremy, and the Stats Check crew, because we're making use of some of your tools here. I mean, we could do this without the rankings, but the rankings are a great freaking help. Really, really.
And Dan Hester is another great guy out of Atlanta, out of that crew. But man, it's always funny because I look at these names and I'm like, I know these names. I don't know why I know them. Like number 11 out of Germany, I definitely know that name, and I can't remember why.
You almost jumped on the French WTC captain there, Olivier Weiss, who is one of the guys I always look at because he is a Space Marine specialist and he's always pushing the envelope with what he's taking. So, and shout out to Mirko Cosiglio from Malta, my father's home country. So well represented there. Let's get into the last pod. And then we'll do the overall stats, have a little quick chit chat about that, and we'll be done. But last pod, single Grey Knight champion, 2 Dark Angels, 1 Blood Angel, 2 Black Templars, 3 Chaos Space Marines, 1 Death Guard, 1 World Eaters, 2 Necrons, 1 Orc, 7 Votan, 0 for the Hive Mind, still 7 Eldar. And yes, this group is being coined as one of the murderers of murderers rows, because they are absolute terrifying players in this one, in addition to a bunch of others. And what's crazy about this one is that a lot of the terrifying players are down in the ELO rankings. Like there's Lishu from Poland, who is one of the best players in the world, played for Poland at the WTC this year in their winning of the thing. So shout out to him. But who else do you see, mate?
Oh, God, this one has a ton of people. So Sean played with last weekend, number 6. Great Eldar player, came in, I want to say, second-ish at Nova. Good old Quentin Johnson in 3, another Art of War guy. You'll never meet a nicer guy, and he is amazing. He has practiced with his Eldar. Ben, that I mentioned out of Advanced Warfare 40K, is in the first ranking there with his Black Templars. He's been repping them a lot. I know Steve, but I'm blanking on him too much. I haven't seen him probably in a while. Liam, I know, is amazing in number 4, and I've been, I think, talked to him about by Tom Adriani and some others. So I know he is like a crazy heavy hitter.
He's being called the prodigy. I call him the beanstalk because he's extremely tall and skinny. He's very young, but he just won the LGT. So with Chaos Space Marines. So that means he's pretty good, right? He's actually playing Death Guard for this, and he's one of the players we're definitely doing a spotlight on in part 2 because he's jumped off Chaos Space Marines, having won one of the biggest events in the world, and he's taking Death Guard instead. So many people are getting a head scratch, and he's calling his shot, saying that this is better than CSM by not taking them. So that's very interesting to me.
Now, your buddy Liam Hackett, right? 9?
Yeah, boy. Representing Australia, playing in Necrons, a very similar list to, I think, what he took to the WTC. I think he's got 2 bricks of 20 Necron warriors. We'll be unpacking that one in part 2 also. But yeah, this is ferocious, this pod.
I think this is definitely, it might be harder than mine, actually, looking at it now. So, some other notable people, Russell Tassin. I've played him a couple times. He's a great dude I want to say he plays out of Texas. Matt Burgoon is actually local to me. Super young guy, that next generation of player. He lives, I think he plays the shop like 10 minutes from me. Good old Perry. You'll never meet one, probably a nicer guy, but also a nicer guy that refuses to wear shoes. Jason,
nicest hobbit.
I know.
Nicest hobbit in the whole scene.
The Hobbit 3 times our size.
Yes.
Jason
Massive
Sparks out of Canada. I want to say he's played on their team for a couple of years, and also just a good dude. I've met him up there. So yeah, this is another just like amazingly hard bracket, as you mentioned. The ELO rankings sometimes disguise how good people are.
Absolutely. Well, ELO isn't the be all end all. It's a very good system, and we're very lucky to have it. And the lovely gents who put the work into it. But yeah, as you can see, like it is not the be all end all, but it's a very good guide of who's active and doing very well in the last year or two. And that's what it's an indication of. Oh, in countries where they record stuff in the right formats. So there are a lot of T's and C's, but it's a general guide for who's doing well at the moment. I think if you look at it like that, it's very, very valuable. Let's do the O's overall stats. So 176 players in attendance, and this is the totals for each faction therein. 5 Sisters of Battle, 7 Custodes, 1 Cult Mechanicus, 7 Astra Militarum, 2 Grey Knights, 1 Imperial Knight, 7 Astartes, or the regular Astartes, that being it's either Ultras, Salamanders, Iron Hands, Raven Guard, or White Scars. 7 Dark Angels, 4 Space Wolves, 5 Blood Angels, 2 Death Watch, and 10 Black Templars. So a lot of confidence coming to the Templars here. 20 Chaos Space Marines, 4 Thousand Suns, 4 Death Guard, 9 World Eaters, 2 Demons, and 6 Chaos Knights, 8 Necrons, 3 Orcs, 11 Tau, and 8 Votan, 3 Tyranids, 5 Genestealer Cults, 2 Drukhari, and just a little old 34 Eldari. 34 Eldari. 14 more than the next faction down. The faction podium being Eldari in first at 34, Chaos Space Marines in second at 20. And we took a big dip of 14 from first to second. Then we take another dip of 9 between Chaos Space Marines and Tau in 11. Black Templars in fourth with 10, and then rounding it out in fifth is World Eaters with 9 players in representation. But what do you think of that spread? What jumps out to you immediately?
Honestly, one of the things that jumps out to me is this is the opposite of I really expected more Eldar. I genuinely expected, I expected that to be 40s at least.
I would not have been surprised.
Such an obvious choice, and most of these players also not most. I shouldn't say that. That's not fair. A lot of these players that are not playing Eldar, I guarantee you, qualified for Eldar.
Savage them. Do not hold back. Let's go. But yeah, I would not have been surprised.
Every time I see one of these players here, I'll go back. I saw one that I wanted to randomly throw shade at, even though I've never met him in my life. Maybe just so I can have someone slap me at the event. Here, where is it? Come on, Benjamin Tia from Singapore, and a couple of these others. Eric Yu from China, playing Eldari, really? please say hi to me. But
I mean
I may love you because you're coming from a nation that I wouldn't see very often. But Eldar, really? So no, I think Eldar surprised me. World Eaters surprised me. Because I think that they're very, very strong. I know Vanilla has shown some amazing success with them.
And Jack
I think they have some
at Tampa. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that like they have some good matches into some of the top armies, which is probably part of the reason. But they're pretty rare typically, so I didn't expect to see quite as many. I think there's like in Group 4, I want to say there's 3 or 4 of them. I was like, what the hell happened here? What have I got? I think 3 in mine. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 of them, and I was like, huh. There's as many World Eaters in my bracket as there are Eldari, which I found bizarre. Other than that, I expected the level of Space Marines, especially since like the Ironstorm build and a couple of the others, the Vanguard one is kind of slept on.
Yeah.
They're so good right now. And everyone has Marines. They're pretty good to play. You also have to look at like both travel and mental fatigue. I don't think they're quite maybe as involved as some armies, like a body heavy army. And on top of that, like they probably travel pretty well. So I think Marines are always there's a lot of factors working in their way of being a common choice.
The age old is there's a color of Marines for every situation. It's just
yes.
There is one that is going to be the right meta pick, and right now people seem to think it's Black Templars for this event. So we'll see if those are correct. I wanted to point out the lack of Tyranids for being the only other, apart from the Space Marines, the only other faction that has a codex. Only 3 Tyranids is unders, but I'm not surprised. I think people are quite realistic at the strength of that book. It is a very good upper middle book, depending on the builder, but I think it's the lists are so almost pigeonholed. There's only like 1 or 2 lists that feel truly well-rounded and can play into a multitude of different opponents. But even then, there's just some bad matchups. Like Chaos Space Marines, I just don't know what they have for Chaos Space Marines. And even when they have a good build into them, they still lose it. And then that good build, can it run through 34 freaking Drakari? Like,
it's not rounded enough. And I'll do a shout out to team events really quick of like, that is part of why I like true team events.
Absolutely.
Is that it forces you to take other books and you can avoid some bad matches, because maybe NIDS you would see more of them if they could just avoid 1 or 2 things. So if you haven't tried a team event, shout out, go try them. But how many T-Suns in GSC were there?
There is 5 GSC, which is I think decent numbers considering where people think they are at. And what did you say the other one was? What'd you ask?
T-Suns.
T-Suns. 4 T-Suns.
Yeah, I think both of those are probably stronger armies than their representation dictates.
I agree.
So those are going to be pretty cool too, because I think maybe people forgot some of their early edition power by now. Played well. They're not as I think raw strong as they once were, but they can still do some things. So we'll see how they go, and we'll see if post event there's some really cool meta choices that people have made that you and I didn't notice of why they came up with bringing this. Like you mentioned, didn't he bring Death Guard?
Yes, Liam Versell brought Death Guard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we may find out that,
he was right,
far smarter than both of us, and he was like, here were the reasons that I brought Death Guard. They match up into the meta that I expected really well, so it'll be cool to see.
In that vein, there are some other really good factions, Orcs being notably amongst them, where there's only 3 players in representation. Orcs might not be a great play into everything, but they have better play into the field than so many other factions. Chaos Knights being represented well with 6 players in addition. I mean, if I knew that I couldn't win this event and that I could get a bunch of points just coming up a middle, Chaos Knights, I believe, is a very good pick to perform in that manner. Additionally, Votann is very similar as well. You are going to just blow some people up, and then maybe you just lose some close ones. But Votann is another one that scores very well.
And some of those, like Votann, I think maybe got not discovered, but you know what I mean, discovered by the meta so recently that people hadn't jumped on them enough yet for them to be a popular pick. But I think Votann's incredibly strong right now.
Can't get enough Sagittars. It's just
you just can't buy enough Sagittars.
I do want to talk to you about Tau. Now, this is the last thing we're going to talk about before we check out. But Tau sitting in 3rd on this podium for faction representation is not what I would have guessed at. I would have guessed it would 100% have been the next one down. It would have been a Space Marine chapter of some description.
Yeah, same here.
What is it that Tau has going for it at this event in particular? Because I am of the opinion that WTC terrain is worse for Tau than it's good. Like, there are better terrain formats out there for Tau. Why did you take them? And why do you think a bunch of other people, 10 other people took them as well?
I would have to look at all the people that took them. I would say that here, let me look real quick because I have a hunch of part of this. So like
Siegler took him as well.
So Siegler took them as well. He is a longtime Tau player, just like I am. So that's two of us. Kit Smith Hanna, I know that he got on it because he felt that they were the correct choice of the event. Donald Plummer is a longtime Tau player. That's three of like I couldn't imagine him playing the L. Same with Devin Swan from Canada. He always plays Tau. So I think some of it, probably at least half of them, you're seeing people who just like, this is their army. That is what they will be playing.
Specialists.
And I also think that and Brandon is another one of those that's played that army for a long time. I know he also played a Legion of the Damned Space Marine army, but I think some of it is people dedicated to the faction, they stick around. I think another part is there's just Tau do have strong mechanics, right? They can blow people off the board. So I think you get some of that to it. Plus, they had a pretty good addition at times. So there's always a big player base. Tau is probably one of the most, other than Eldar, most popular, best-selling GW armies. They're sort of like a Xeno Space Marines in some ways. So there are just a lot of people that do them, but I was a little surprised that there were quite as many. I think I expected more 6 to 7.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I expect them to be around the Votan, Necron numbers, etc. But anyway, we are going to wrap it up at that point. We're going to go to part 2. We're going to shine a spotlight on some of these best players in the world and see what they're bringing, why we think they're bringing it, what we think it's going to do, and how we think it will perform. We'll be unpacking, what they brought and why, in addition to having a look in on the enhancements, if there's anything special, spicy, tech-wise that give people an edge. Thank you very much, Andrew, for coming on. I'll be by the time this goes live, I will have been in the air en route to Atlanta for a couple of hours. So everyone pray for me. Pray that I don't that I'm sitting somewhere comfortable getting some Z's if I can.
Well, travel safe. It was great joining you for it, and I will see you in a few days.
Perfect. See you then, mate.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40K. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.